Imagine yourself walking through a vast desert, feeling the warm wind touch your skin. The sun sets over the horizon, painting the sky with shades of gold and purple. Suddenly, you realize that you are about to discover something great, a secret that has spanned centuries, hidden between the pages of humanity's oldest history. This is a story of courage and sacrifice, of battles fought not just on earth but in the heavens. Imagine celestial warriors wielding flaming swords, facing forces that challenge the balance of the universe. At the center of this battle is Michael, the powerful archangel, leader of the divine armies. But contrary to what many would do in the face of power, he chose obedience over rebellion. What led you to this choice? What secrets does your destiny hide? And then there is Moses, one of the greatest leaders the world has ever known. A man who faced kings, opened seas and guided an entire people to freedom. But why, after all this, did God decide to hide his tomb? What was so special about this place that it needed to be kept secret? These questions are not just echoes of the past. They carry lessons that still resonate in our lives today. What can these ancient stories teach us about faith, courage, and the true meaning of power? Get ready for a fascinating journey, where each discovery will bring new answers, and perhaps even more mysteries to unravel. Are you ready to embark on this adventure? You won't want to miss a second of this story. So, come with us to explore one of the greatest mysteries of faith and history. Have you ever heard about a dispute between Archangel Michael and Satan? So it is. In the book of Jude, chapter 1, verse 9, there is a reference to something that appears nowhere else in the Bible. It says that Michael and the devil argued over Moses' body. But the most curious thing is that we have no details about what really happened. All we know is that instead of attacking or offending Satan, Michael just said, "The Lord rebuke you." This leaves us with a big question: where did Judas get this information? Was it something passed down from generation to generation, like a story told by the ancients? Or is there something more behind this mystery? This is one of those passages that make us reflect and seek more answers. But one thing is certain, there is much more to this story than we realize. Let's solve this enigma together? You won't want to miss a second of this story. So, come with us to explore one of the greatest mysteries of faith and history. Imagine if the people of Israel discovered where Moses was buried. Since he was such a beloved leader, it is quite possible that many began to venerate the site or even his bones, turning this into a wrong kind of worship. Satan could use this to turn them away from God, and Michael, as protector of the people of Israel, did everything to avoid this idolatry, keeping Moses' burial place a secret. The Bible gives us clues about Michael's role in this mission. In the book of Daniel, chapter 10, verse 21, the angel Gabriel says that Michael is the guardian of Israel, the one who fights against evil spiritual forces. This shows how he was always protecting God's people. The name Moses brings many images to mind: the leader who faced Pharaoh, parted the Red Sea, and received the 10 Commandments. But his death remains a mystery to this day. What exactly happened? And why did God want to hide his tomb? These questions make us reflect on the importance of true worship and how some things remain secrets kept by the Creator himself. Fascinating, right? Let's explore more about this mystery together. Have you ever imagined someone 120 years old climbing a mountain without showing any signs of tiredness? It seems impossible, but that's exactly what Moses did. He was not a frail elderly man, with slow steps and a tired look. On the contrary, his vision remained clear, his strength remained intact, and his determination was unshakable. He lived a life of miracles, and until the last moment, his story remained surprising. Instead of just speaking to the rock, as God had commanded, Moses struck it with his staff. The water flowed, the people drank, but this attitude cost him the right to cross the border. But despite everything he achieved, Moses was unable to enter the promised land. The reason? Many years before, in the episode of the waters of Meribah Kadesh, he disobeyed God. Even so, God gave him one last gift, the chance to see the land he had fought so hard for. Imagine this moment. Moses, after years of leading his people through the desert, climbing Mount Nebo, which is almost 1 kilometer high. Now, think about the difficulty. There were no easy trails, no shortcuts, just rocks and a steep path. But he didn't hesitate. He climbed up with his own hands and feet, without needing help. A true warrior to the end. From up there, in front of that grand view, he saw God's promise being fulfilled. He knew he would not cross those borders, but he also knew that his people were ready to carry on without him. And most importantly, God had already prepared a new leader, Joshua, to take on his mission. Moses didn't complain, he didn't question. He accepted his destiny with the same faith that guided him from the beginning. And so, on top of that mountain, he ended his journey on earth, but his legacy would never be forgotten. Incredible, right? A life marked by miracles, challenges and unshakable faith until the last second. Moses may not have entered the Promised Land, but his story continues to inspire generations to this day. After 40 years of carrying the enormous responsibility of leading the people of Israel, Moses could finally rest. For the first time in decades, he no longer had to make all the decisions, resolve conflicts, or face gigantic challenges. God had already chosen Joshua to take on this mission. Now, imagine the scene: Moses, aged 120, climbing Mount Nebo step by step, without rushing, without the weight of so many responsibilities. For the last time, he looked at the Promised Land, that piece of ground he dreamed of reaching but would never set foot on. And then, what God had planned happened: it was time to go home. The account of his death is in the last 6 verses of Deuteronomy 34. And what an incredible farewell. Think about it, 120 years of life and you could still see perfectly. He never needed glasses, never used a cane, never sat in a rocking chair complaining about the pain of age. Moses lived strong and finished his mission standing. And the Israelites? They missed you like never before. For a whole month, they cried and mourned his departure. After all, they lost not just a leader, but a wise man, an advisor, a friend. But like everything in life, mourning also came to an end. And then something extraordinary came. Verse 6 makes one of the most mysterious and surprising statements about Moses. He was buried, but no one ever knew where his grave was. Such a great leader had an end surrounded by mystery. Death has this power to make us reflect, doesn't it? Moses lived a life full of miracles, challenges, and unshakable faith. He may not have set foot in the Promised Land, but his legacy continued to resonate for generations. And to this day, his story inspires the world. What an incredible journey! Did you know that Moses was the only person in the Bible that God personally made a point of burying? Yes, that's right. In Deuteronomy 34 verse 6, it is written that the Lord buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, but no one ever knew where his grave was. Now, stop and think, why would God hide such an important tomb? The answer is simple: if the place were known, people would probably transform it into a sanctuary of worship. Thousands of people climbing Mount Nebo, building temples, selling souvenirs, taking photos, and even offering tours to the tomb of Moses. God knew this could distract from the true faith, so he kept the location a secret. And this matter was so serious that it provoked a true angelic confrontation. The Bible says that the archangel Michael had a dispute with Satan over the body of Moses. But look how curious, even though he was a powerful archangel, Michael did not dare to confront the devil with his own words. Instead, he just said, "The Lord rebuke you." This teaches us something very important: even the most powerful beings know that supreme authority comes from God. In Revelation 12 verses 7 to 9, we see that Michael led a war in heaven against Satan and his angels, and in the end, the dragon, that is, the devil himself, was cast out of heaven and thrown to earth along with his followers. The story of Moses, his mysterious death, and this spiritual battle show us that there is much more going on in the world than we can see. But one thing is certain: God always has control of everything. Michael the archangel is a true celestial warrior. Unlike most angels, who are sent as messengers from God, Michael is described in the Bible as a fighter, a protector who faces evil forces and spiritual battles. His name, Miguel, means "who is like God," and that already says a lot about his mission. He appears in 3 books of the Bible, Daniel, Judas, and Revelation, always resisting and fighting evil. He not only faces God's enemies, but also acts with humility. Instead of passing judgment on his own, he simply declares, "The Lord rebuke you." This is very reminiscent of what happens in Zechariah 3 verses 1 to 2. There, the prophet says that Satan was accusing Joshua, the high priest, but God himself intervened and said, "The Lord rebuke you, Satan. The Lord, who chose Jerusalem, rebuke you." Michael's story shows us that no matter how strong or powerful someone is, true authority belongs to God. And Miguel, even though he is a leader of the heavenly armies, understands this better than anyone. Imagine a gigantic battlefield, where the fate of heaven and earth hangs in the balance. On one side, Michael, the powerful archangel, leads an army of faithful angels. On the other, Satan, the great traitor, with his legions of followers. The sky shakes as the forces clash, and the glow of flaming swords cuts through the darkness. Miguel is not just a warrior, he is a strong but humble leader. Since the beginning of time, he has always been at God's side, carrying out his will with complete obedience. Unlike the rebellious angels, he never questioned his position or desired more power for himself. His strength comes not from arrogance, but from unshakable faith in divine purpose. The final battle between Michael and Satan takes place as described in Revelation 12 verse 7. The enemy, who was once called Lucifer, tried to take God's throne, but was defeated. Michael and his army did not fight for personal ambition or glory, but to restore order and justice. In the end, evil was expelled from heaven, thrown to earth, and with it came the fury of Satan, who swore to destroy those who followed God and maintained their faith in Jesus. But Miguel's story goes beyond this battle. His example shows that being strong does not mean acting alone or imposing your will on others. On the contrary, true strength comes from humility and submission to what is right. He could have tried to fight on his own, but he chose to act in the name of God. This proves that obeying is not a sign of weakness, but rather of wisdom and trust in the divine plan. On the other hand, Lucifer represents the opposite of this lesson. Created as one of the most beautiful and powerful beings, he allowed himself to be consumed by pride. Instead of accepting his role in creation, he wanted more. He wanted to be like God, take his place and rule with his own authority. But this thirst for power was his undoing. His desire to place himself above everyone led him to his downfall and perdition. In the end, Miguel's story teaches us that true power is not in brute force or the search for recognition, but in knowing who and why we fight. Michael did not seek glory of his own, he fought for justice, for the greater good, and, above all, for God. And this lesson applies to all of us. We often want to do things our way, without listening to advice or following the right path. But true victory comes when we trust and follow the right plan, just as Michael did with God. You know, this is a lesson we all need to learn, me, you, everyone. Many people still have difficulty truly bowing before God. But think about it, we are the creatures, and He is the Creator. Who are we to question what He does? Don't get me wrong, having doubts is normal. We have all, at some point, asked ourselves, why, God? But we need to remember that He is not just the one who created us, He is also the one who saves us, who cares for us. God is perfect, just and never makes mistakes. Everything He does has a purpose, even when we don't understand it. The big question is, do we really trust Him? Do we recognize His authority and appreciate who He is? Because in the end, there will be a time when each person will have to give an account. And Jesus will say, "You called me Lord, but you never did what I asked." Everyone went their own way and did what they thought was right. Therefore, truly trusting God is not just talking nice, it is living according to what He teaches us. That makes all the difference. So, have you ever stopped to think about the incredible example that Michael, the archangel, gives us? Along this journey, we delve into stories full of meaning, from Michael to Moses, from spiritual battles to challenges of faith. But do you know what is most impressive? These stories are not just tales of the past. They talk about us, about our life, our choices and our purpose in the universe. If this video made you think and brought you new answers, just imagine what else is waiting to be discovered. Here, each video is a new adventure, a new mystery to be solved. So, don't be left out. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell and be the first to receive each new revelation.